After Los Angeles. After the trip to Los Angeles, everything between me and Maddox began to change. Not in a way anyone on the outside could notice. We still texted every day, still saw each other, still argued over stupid things. But inside me, an invisible wall had appeared. I started keeping my distance. Not much, just enough to protect myself. At least that's what I told myself. December arrived with the first snowfall. Boston draped itself in cold white. My final semester was nearly over. Only a few months left until graduation. That time every student faces with equal parts excitement and dread. The future lay ahead. But no one yet knew what it would look like, including me. One afternoon, I was sitting in the library when my phone buzzed. A message from Maddox. Free. I stared at the screen. Took a few seconds to reply. What's going on? Open the door. I frowned, then turned to look through the library's glass doors, and saw him. Maddox was standing outside in the snow, 2 cups of coffee in his hands, smiling at me. My heart immediately betrayed its owner. 10 minutes later, we were sitting on a bench near the campus grounds. Snow fell lightly. Steam rose from the coffee cups into the cold air. Don't you have work? I asked.
Ido.
Then why are you here? I wanted to see you. He said it so naturally. I bowed my head and sipped my coffee, trying to hide the smile creeping into the corner of my mouth. Maddox looked at me. I have good news. What? The new film got nominated for an award. Congratulations. I wanted you to be the first to know. I looked up. His eyes were completely sincere. A warmth spread across my chest. Maybe that was why I couldn't pull away from him. Because no matter how famous a star he was, Maddox always made me feel like I mattered. That weekend, I was invited to an awards ceremony. For the first time in my life, I wore a suit worth more than 3 months of rent, and stood among hundreds of famous people. Honestly, I hated it. I look like an idiot, I muttered. Maddox straightened my tie. No, you don't. I don't belong here. You're standing next to me. That doesn't help. He laughed. Do you know what I like most about you? I'm afraid of the answer. You've never tried to be someone else. I looked at him. In that moment, camera flashes burst all around us. But I only saw him. That frightened me. The ceremony went smoothly. Maddox's film won the top award. The audience rose to its feet, applauding. I stood too, watching him walk to the stage. Confident, radiant, luminous. In the wave of applause, I suddenly understood something. Maddox's world was enormous. Mine was very small. He belonged to the spotlight, and I was just a student about to graduate. The distance between us wasn't a few steps. It was an entire sky. That thought stayed with me all night. 1 week later, my final exam results were announced. I graduated with honors. My mother cried on the phone. My father bragged to every neighbor he could find. My friends dragged me out to celebrate. And Maddox? He appeared at my apartment door at 8 in the evening, holding a small cake. Happy graduation. I laughed. That's all.
No.
He pulled something from behind his back. A bottle of soda. I also brought this luxury item. I'm deeply moved. Right? We sat on the living room floor. Ate cake. Talked. The way we had 100 times before. But tonight felt different. Maybe because I was about to turn the page to a new chapter of my life. Or maybe because I knew I couldn't keep going like this forever. I got a job offer, I said. Maddox turned to look at me. Where? Chicago. The smile on his face disappeared. Chicago. Yeah. That's over 1,000 miles away. I smiled faintly. You know the exact distance? He didn't answer that. What's the issue? He was silent. An unusually long silence. Then finally he asked, You're going to go? I looked down at the cake in my hand. Probably. I hadn't actually decided yet. But I wanted to hear his answer. Maddox didn't speak right away. He looked toward the window, his eyes darker than usual. I don't want you to go. My heart nearly stopped. Just a few simple words. but enough to shake every feeling I had worked so hard to bury. Why? I asked softly. Maddox turned and looked at me, for the first time in a long while. No smile. No joking. Just raw honesty. Because I can't imagine my life without you. The air in the room seemed to freeze. I looked at him. He looked at me. Only a few dozen centimeters between us. But the whole world felt as if it had gone still. I knew I should say something. Anything. But my mind was completely blank. Because for the first time, I began to wonder whether these feelings were truly only coming from one side. After those words, neither of us spoke for several seconds. Or maybe several minutes. I wasn't sure. Because my heart was beating so hard I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. I opened my mouth, then stopped. Maddox still looked at me, his gaze making every word harder to find. In the end, he was the one who turned away first. Sorry. I blinked. What? I shouldn't pressure you. You're not. He exhaled. One of the rare moments I'd ever seen Maddox flustered. I just don't want to lose you. My chest ached. That was exactly it. I didn't want to lose him either. That night after Maddox left, I barely slept. I lay on my bed, watching the city lights filter through the window, thinking about everything that had happened over the past 2 years. If someone had told sophomore Rowan that he would fall in love with a famous film star, I would have laughed in their face. But life always enjoys creating the strangest situations. And this was the strangest of all. What confused me most was Maddox's reaction. Did he only see me as his closest friend? Or was there something more? I didn't know. And that uncertainty was killing me, slowly. 2 weeks later, I received another job offer. This time in Boston. Lower salary. But no need to move. I held the offer letter in my hands for nearly half an hour. Then finally called my father. He listened as I laid out the pros and cons of each choice. Listened as I talked about career growth, salary, and the future. Then he asked just one question. Is there something you haven't told me? I stopped. What do you mean? When someone overanalyzes like this, it usually means they're hiding the real reason. I laughed helplessly. Dad always saw right through me. I have a friend, I said. A very close one. If I move to Chicago, you might lose them? I said nothing. Dad smiled gently. Yes. Sometimes life is about more than work. I looked out the window. The Boston sky was turning amber in the late afternoon. For the first time in weeks, I began to understand what I truly wanted. I accepted the job in Boston and turned down Chicago. When I sent the confirmation email, a wave of relief washed over me, as if I had finally stopped running from something or someone. That evening I called Maddox. I have news. Don't tell me you won the lottery. I'm not that lucky. Then what? I'm staying in Boston. Silence on the other end of the line. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. Then Maddox asked, Really? Yeah. Another pause. Then I heard him laugh. A quiet laugh, but full of something light. Good. Just one word. But I heard the relief in it. And it made me smile for the rest of the night. That summer arrived quickly. I officially graduated. Officially started working. Officially stepped into the adult world. The new job kept me busy. Maddox was busy too. He had started shooting a major project that would take months. We no longer saw each other every day. But we still texted. Still called. Still shared the smallest, most trivial things in our lives. Some days I'd send a photo of my lunch. He'd say it looked terrible. I'd say the same about his taste in food. Then we'd argue for nearly 10 minutes about whether New York-style pizza was better than Chicago-style. Those meaningless conversations became the part of each day I looked forward to most. One evening in August, I was working late at the office. The floor nearly empty. The clock just past 9. My phone lit up suddenly. Maddox video calling. I answered. His face appeared on the screen. Hair messy. Oversized hoodie. Looking tired but annoyingly handsome anyway. I'm hungry. That was the first thing he said. I'm sorry to hear that. I think you should be more sympathetic. I'm working. So am I. Why are you calling? Maddox turned the camera around. Behind him was an enormous film set. Bored. I'm not an entertainment service.
No.
He smiled. You're Rowan. I don't know why, but that simple sentence made something in me soften. As if just being myself was already enough. Time kept passing. 3 years. Then 4. Both our lives had changed. I gradually moved up at work. From new hire to team manager. Maddox went from rising star to one of Hollywood's most celebrated actors. He appeared on magazine covers, on billboards, at major awards shows. But no matter how much the world around us changed, one thing remained constant. We always found our way back to each other. Whenever things were good, whenever things were hard, whenever either of us felt lost. Then one day everything shifted. I was in a meeting when my phone buzzed repeatedly. 10 missed calls. All from Maddox. A cold unease settled in immediately. The moment the meeting ended, I called back. He picked up almost instantly. Rowan. His voice was hoarse. Something was wrong. What happened? He didn't answer right away. I heard his breathing. Heavy. Strained. Then he said, I need to see you. My heart dropped. Where? My place. I'm on my way. I didn't know what was waiting for me, but something told me our lives were about to turn a corner into a completely different chapter. One that would change everything between us forever. I drove to Maddox's apartment faster than the speed limit allowed. The whole way, my mind kept running through worst-case scenarios. An accident? Illness? Something with his family? I had never heard his voice like that. Never. And it terrified me. 30 minutes later, I stood at his door. Before I could even ring the bell, it opened. Maddox appeared. I almost didn't recognize him. Not because of his appearance, but because of his expression. Tired. Drained. As if he hadn't slept in days. Rowan. He said my name quietly. I'm here. In the next moment, the most unexpected thing happened. Maddox hugged me. Without warning. Without explanation. He simply stepped forward and held me tight. I stood frozen. My arms hanging in the air for a few seconds. Then finally I wrapped them around him too. I'm here, I said. My voice barely above a whisper. His body trembled slightly, and that made my heart ache. We sat down in the living room. It took almost 10 minutes before Maddox would speak. I just turned down a project, he said. I blinked. That's it. He laughed, a hollow sound. I know it sounds ridiculous. I thought something terrible had happened. To the management company. This is a catastrophe. I listened. The project was worth tens of millions of dollars. Yeah. They wanted me to sign a 5-year contract. That's big. Very big. He looked down at his hands. I turned it down. Why? The room went quiet. Maddox leaned back in his chair. Eyes fixed on the ceiling.
I'm tired.
I didn't say anything. I've been running for nearly 10 years. He continued. Film after film. Press tour after press tour. Flight after flight. His voice grew smaller. I can't remember the last time I was genuinely happy. My chest tightened, because I knew he meant every word. I think I need to live, Maddox said softly. Not just exist. Live. I looked at him for a long moment, then asked, and that scares you? He smiled bitterly. Very much. Why? Because since I was 18, all I've known how to be is Maddox Hayes. I don't know who I am outside of that. I understood that feeling. When a role consumes your entire life, you forget the real person underneath. That night stretched on until nearly midnight. We talked about so many things. Fame, pressure, the future, the things we'd each been afraid of. Sometimes Maddox laughed. Sometimes he fell into long silences. But at least he no longer carried that look of loneliness he'd had when I arrived. Around 11, I stood up. I should go. Yeah. He stood too. But as I walked toward the door, Maddox called after me. Rowan. I turned. Thank you. For what? For always coming. I smiled. You'd do the same for me. I would. Then you don't need to thank me. He looked at me. For a long time, that look made my heartbeat go unruly again. Fortunately, I left before I could think too much. 2 months later, Maddox truly stepped back from work. For the first time in nearly a decade, the press began speculating wildly. Some said he was having a breakdown, others that he was about to retire, others that he was secretly getting married. Rumors surfaced every day, but Maddox didn't care. He spent his time reading, traveling, learning to cook, and failing spectacularly at learning to cook. "What is this?" I asked, staring at the suspiciously colorful dish in front of me. "Lasagna. I think this is a crime." "You're so rude. I'm just honest." Maddox laughed so hard he had to hold onto the table. Days like that became more frequent. Simple, peaceful, no red carpets, no cameras, just the two of us. And it was precisely those days that made the feelings inside me grow deeper. Then something unexpected happened. One evening in late autumn, we were watching a film in his living room when his phone buzzed. A name appeared on the screen. Claire. I didn't know who she was, but Maddox's expression changed instantly. He answered, talked for about 5 minutes, then hung up. "Something wrong?" I asked. He hesitated, then replied, "It's an ex." Felt like someone had punched me in the chest. Even after all these years, the feeling was still there, still sharp. "I see," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "She wants to meet." I nodded, with nothing left to add. The atmosphere became strange, heavy, uncomfortable. I stood up. "I should go. Rowan. I have an early morning." "Rowan." I didn't look at him, because I was afraid he'd read everything on my face. Afraid he'd notice. Afraid he'd see how much it hurt just to consider the possibility of him going back to someone else. "Good night," I said quickly, then left. That night was one of the longest of my life. I sat alone in my apartment. Lights off, music off, just watching the city outside the window. 5 years. I had loved Maddox for nearly 5 years. Quietly, patiently, and sometimes hopelessly. I used to think I could live like this forever, just being beside him, just being his friend. But for the first time, I began to realize that wasn't enough anymore. Because the human heart is always greedy. When you've loved someone for too long, you start to want more. To be chosen. To be loved in return. To be the most important person in their life. And I didn't know how much longer I could keep pretending to be okay. 3 days later, Maddox appeared at my door. No warning. No text. No call. I had barely opened the door when I saw him standing there with 2 cups of coffee. Exactly like that day at the university library. Except we were no longer the 20-year-olds we used to be. "You've been avoiding me." That was the first thing he said. I sighed. "You haven't even been invited in yet." "May I come in?" "Yes." Maddox stepped inside, set the coffee on the table, then turned and looked at me. "Now answer." "I haven't been avoiding you, Rowan. I've been busy. For 3 days. "Yes. You ignored 11 calls. And 23 texts." I winced. "Why were you counting?" "I don't know." He crossed his arms. "Maybe because I missed you." My heart betrayed me again. As always, we sat across from each other. A long silence stretched between us. Finally, Maddox spoke first. "I'm not getting back together with Claire." I stopped. "I didn't ask." "But you wanted to know." I looked at my coffee, and didn't deny it. Maddox exhaled slowly.
"We met."
"Yeah. Just to talk." "Yeah." And I realized something. I looked up. He was watching me, very carefully. "What?" Maddox opened his mouth, then stopped. It was rare to see him struggle for words like that. Finally, he just shook his head. "Nothing." I felt an odd, quiet disappointment. The following weeks passed in a kind of in-between state. Nothing really happened. But things weren't the same as before either. I could feel it. So could Maddox. Sometimes I'd catch him looking at me, as if he was turning something over in his mind. But whenever I asked, he'd just smile and change the subject. It was driving me crazy. One evening in December, Boston buried in snow. I was at the office when a message came through. Dress warm. I laughed. Is that an order? A recommendation?
I'm fetty.
Still easy to catch a cold. You old soul. I'll take that. I was about to put my phone away when a second message appeared. Come outside. What?
I'm downstairs.
I looked through the glass and saw the familiar car parked across the street. 10 minutes later, I was in the passenger seat. What's going on? I asked. Nothing. Then where are we going? I don't know. Great. I think sometimes people should just drive without a plan. I think you're having a midlife crisis at 30. Maddox laughed. That's an insult. Precisely. We drove through streets blanketed in snow. Music low in the car. Neither of us said much. But the silence was easy. The way being beside each other had become the most natural thing in the world. Eventually the car stopped at the shoreline. Winter had left it nearly empty. Cold wind, strong waves, an endless dark sky. We walked along the sand, parallel footprints trailing behind us. I remember the first time I met you, Maddox said. I smiled. I spilled wine all over you. A beautiful moment. I got fired for it. Not by me. Technically, you were involved. He laughed softly, then went quiet. After a moment, he said, I used to think you'd disappear. Why? The job ended. University ended. Life kept going. He looked out at the water. I thought one day you'd have a family, career, things that mattered more. And I'd just be a chapter in your story. My chest tightened. Maddox. I didn't want that. He said it quietly, but I heard every word. Clearly, the wind off the ocean grew stronger. The cold was sharp, but I could barely feel it. Every bit of my attention was on the person beside me. Maddox. If you were afraid I'd leave. I took a slow breath. Then why did you never try to keep me? He turned and looked at me, his eyes darkening, as if the question had reached somewhere very deep. I didn't have the right. You did.
No.
You did. For the first time in years, I stopped running, stopped pretending, stopped hiding. I've always been here, I said. Always. My voice cracked. Maddox, you are the most important person in my life. A long silence followed. Waves broke against the shore. Somewhere in the distance, city lights glimmered. And in the middle of all of it, I finally spoke a part of the truth. Not all of it, but enough to stop lying. Maddox looked at me for a long time. Then he stepped closer. One step, then another. The distance between us nearly gone. My heart beat so hard it ached. For a long time, he said softly. I always thought I was the only one who felt this way. I stopped breathing. The whole world seemed to stop turning. There was only his voice, and those gray-blue eyes that had never left mine. I'm not sure who stopped breathing first. Maybe me, maybe Maddox, or maybe both of us. Because after those words, every sound seemed to vanish. The waves, the wind, the distant hum of traffic. All of it faded, leaving only the man standing in front of me. The man I had loved for nearly 7 years. Maddox! I heard my own voice, so quiet it nearly dissolved into the air. He didn't look away. I tried not to think about it, he said. I told myself I was just too dependent on you, that it was only friendship. My heart pounded. So did I admitted. A sad smile touched his lips. How foolish. Yeah. We wasted so much time. We did. Neither of us laughed. Because we both knew it was true. I remember that moment clearly. The winter sky, the empty shore, the salt in the wind, and Maddox's eyes. The eyes that told me I no longer had to wonder, no longer had to hope in silence, no longer had to love alone. Rowan. He said my name, the way he always had. But this time something was different, softer, warmer, so sincere it made my chest ache.
I'm afraid.
I was slightly surprised. Of what? If I say it. He smiled faintly. And you don't feel the same. I stepped closer. The first time I'd been the one to close the distance. Maddox. Yeah. Do you really think I'd be standing out here at midnight in the cold just for friendship? He looked at me for a few seconds, then laughed. A small sound, but his eyes went red at the corners. And in that moment I understood. He had lived through the same years I had. The same confusion, the same waiting, the same fear. No one confesses their love perfectly. At least we didn't. No long speech.
No romantic soundtrack. No fireworks.
Just two men standing in the cold wind, looking at each other as if they had finally found the answer after years of searching. I love you, Maddox said it. Simple as that. Straightforward as that. And my heart nearly melted. I closed my eyes for 1 second, then opened them. I love you too. My voice trembled, but I didn't care, because it was the truth. The most beautiful truth I had ever spoken aloud. The first kiss came after, unhurried, gentle, not rushed, not desperate. Just two people finally crossing a distance that had existed far too long. When our lips met, I felt as if some part of me had finally returned to where it belonged. 7 years. 7 years of loving in silence. 7 years of waiting. 7 years of asking whether it had been worth it. And the answer was right here, in Maddox's arms. I can't believe it, he said afterward. We were sitting on the sand, shoulders touching. Neither can I. Why didn't you say something sooner? I laughed. I was about to ask you the same thing. That's not fair. It's completely fair. He shook his head. I'm famous. What does that have to do with anything? I'm used to people making the first move. Then you should thank me.
No.
Why not? Because in the end I still had to say it first. I burst out laughing. And Maddox laughed too. The strangest thing was, none of it felt awkward. None of it felt unfamiliar. On the contrary, it felt like the next completely natural step in a story that had begun a very long time ago. The months that followed were the happiest of my life. Not because we suddenly became a perfect couple, but because we were finally free to be ourselves. No more hiding, no more guessing, no more fear every time the heart stirred. There were still difficulties, of course. Many, especially for Maddox. He was still famous, still followed by the press, still facing pressure from the public. But now he no longer had to carry it alone. One evening, about a year after we officially became a couple, Maddox was sitting in the kitchen while I was cooking dinner. Or trying to. What are you looking at? I asked. You. My fingers froze mid-air. Smooth.
No.
He smiled. I'm just thinking. About what? Maddox rested his chin in his hand, his eyes gentle. I'm very lucky. I looked at him. In that brief moment, I thought back to the sophomore who once waited tables at a restaurant. To the night I was let go. To the SUV parked along the road in the snow. To all the strange turns that had brought us here. And I smiled. Maybe we're both lucky. Maddox nodded. This time without argument. Because he knew I was right.